So this is just a quick video because I did some retopology, and I just wanted to explain that in a short video. And also that I want to try and introduce every one of these sculpting streams with something that I think about very much, and if everyone should, for instance, follow the industry, or you have to do stuff the way they do in some of the more successful corporations or something where some of the more currently known franchises are being put together. And here's some answers. So in terms of making, for instance, 3D, where you could say that the very professional industry perhaps has all the answers, or at least to get some very nice results. But ultimately, I don't want to be rich or like them, or I want to be like an indie. And I also think that that the art world benefits from people doing things differently, and that if everybody in the art world did things the same way, it did not really make sense. And for instance, suppose that everybody agreed that Leonardo da Vinci, he was the best, and then from that day on, after Leonardo da Vinci, everybody was just told, you draw and you paint like Leonardo da Vinci, and nothing else ever gets made. Then let's go to the future and then say here's Picasso. Then everybody agrees Picasso is the best, and he replaces Da Vinci, and then everybody on the planet has to draw stuff like Picasso. Does that make sense? So that's sort of why I think you sort of shouldn't follow the industry. But these are also some of my thoughts, and I just want to share these because I find that enjoying being an artist and working in the art world depends on you understanding what it is and where you could fit in, and where perhaps the art world makes sense to you. So here's my answers also here. For very custom projects or then passion ideas, it almost doesn't make sense, or one wants to create something either very noble or then different from the mainstream. Or sometimes when you're working on something very personal, or you could say the so-called passion projects, you want to make something very custom and that sort of totally lives up to your own expectations, or something that for a very, very specific idea, you might want something that's quite different from just what everybody is doing. And then that is useful to realize that the art world is for everybody, as it were, to not exclude those that aren't at the more pro levels of erudition, or they haven't gone to fancy art schools, to allow quite a few things. And finally, that what matters is more how the final product looks. And then also to make people care what's happening, and that could be said to be the stories or marketing that makes electronic culture, or electronic entertainment interesting. And the focus is not so much where 3D points or topology is placed, and then if one respects the volume or contours or this or that, or the more how there's of more basic objects and stuff like that, it's more like a question of, can you ultimately make something that is appealing to the audience, to make sure that the final theater reaches a ton of people, or to ensure of much revenue, or something like marketing or hype or buzz after the basic art has been added together. That's sort of much more important than just what the 3D is and the specific points or where they have been placed, for instance the topology standards of the more professional industries. And then also, unless one wants to make a ton of money from selling art, and then in the case of video games, to work on something very optimized, it's not that important. And the customers ultimately can't make sense of how much one follows certain standards. You can't really tell. As long as you got something like good enough topology, even if it isn't very optimized, once you have the textures, animations on it, and it's in the 3D scene, unless you have really messed up and created something that's very difficult to animate, most people won't know if you have added 500 or 1,000 polygons too much, and it's sort of redundant for the audience. And finally, that it's important to have personal goals, and that could be want to be different from other artists, for the sake of it, to dabble in more. I think it's actually is it spelled this way? To dabble. I forgot. I actually forgot. I keep. Okay, yeah. To dabble. But to take it, something like casual. Okay. So dabble. Okay, I forgot. In more exotic enterprises, do things simply different or in exotic ways. So you go crazy, or just do something very novel or something. And then that wanting to bring innovations to the art world, that could also be one of your goals. And that almost never happens if one does sort of like what everyone else is working on. And that also something like this, to imitate is rarely good art. And also that of certain patterns and like how things are done belong to the right people, or perhaps something like the better art world. And if you're not at that level, perhaps you shouldn't do what they do. And then to settle for not making everything one sees from the so-called industry, and that perhaps ultimately is no more than here and there greedy CEOs, and then that very famous TV series. So in a sense, the shows themselves instead of even the people that work there. And last, that are perhaps people on narcotics or that have gone to extremes in their pursuit of being famous and to sell much more than they should, and both greed and madness are errors. So that's sort of like perhaps why you should and perhaps why you shouldn't follow the industry, and it's not that important if everybody does that at least. So let's see here. Let's do it because I created like some topology, and I wanted to somehow explain that and just sort of like really go over that. And it's sort of like this for now, bro. Here, like so that we can go just quickly into sculpting, and whoops here, and I just want to smooth this a bit, and whoops. I think that I have okay, clipping in just so that there are several things here that I think are important, and you can just hide this here, but there's hide the arms perhaps. I'm gonna like retopologize some other stuff where you can sort of like learn from watching that, and like how I did stuff like this. It's not that important right now. Let's just disable snapping here, so we can just sort of do like this, and the back plane here, everything here, and just sort of like the smooth brush. One of the things you'll notice is that topology is actually it's quite useful to go into sculpt mode, and the same way that you can sculpt and sort of like move the points. For instance, you can use the grab brush. You can sort of use these tools to something like place the points, as it were. But what I wanted to say is that there is this sort of like way that I have where how I like to make something like, you could say, boobs, and that is after like some there's like different ways of something like, I guess, capturing this shape here of this, the female mammaries, as it were. But that I like when and I need to create some more materials. We call this grid 002, and let's just add a new one, new, so you can better like see what it is that I'm doing. I like in a sense when I model boobs, you can say we go here to sort of like build it of a shape here. And in this case there's some middle, let's see here, and we just do like this, we just rename this to blue 004, and yellow, let's just call this 002, so like, okay. So try and notice that now we can go down here, here is something that I want to change a bit. That in a sense I like to build boobs. Let's just see here. How do I want just this to like connect here. In order for that to work, I think what I have to do is I need to get this, and we can click on like snap here. Like this, and now we get this here, here, yeah, here, 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 and I just so. So this just needs to be smooth now. Let's see here. So now we have this. So now there is sort of like, you notice that here there is so like, and now I need to go here, and we can just sort of get the original back here, and here. So this is a bit difficult to see perhaps if you don't know what to look for. Let's just add one more here, and just make it gray. Call it gray, dark gray, CC2, and then over here, let's just move this down here for now. Notice that there are like 3 surfaces here, and I just wanted to give like an idea of, this is like how I in a sense like to build boobs, and in this case there's gonna be you could say they're gonna like bunch together in the middle, and I can just quickly add another loop here technically to sort of like scatter the points a bit better, and there's like different ways of, as we're building boobs, and perhaps you can start seeing what it is that it's somehow been built from. And let's just click here, and we can just get dark green here and call it dark green 004. So notice that there are these sort of like zones or areas that it's somehow built from, and these that somehow again there is something here where I want certain things to connect a different way, but for now this is good enough, and I probably want one of these lines disappear. But it might be a little bit difficult to see, but so we can like add whoops, here just one more. We're just gonna here. Notice that here there are like 4 lines going into the center point. There's a, you can see there's a line here, 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 and here, and they're like 4 lines that go into this point here. But there are these things here, they're called poles, where there's only 3. And you can like perhaps see like when you like, wait a minute, yeah, there's only like 3 lines going into this point. And there's also only like 3 lines going into this point. And I like to build those and sort of connect those. And it somehow leads to, there's also something here. Here there's 5 points that are like going into like one place. Or you could say 1 point, and these are the so-called poles, and there's again a pole here, and I like to somehow make them add up like in a really nice way. So for instance, you can see that this pole here goes down and connects to this pole point here, and that's in a sense how I like to make it 3D. So just can we like change the color just a little bit here, and let's just get like this. Yeah, I don't know, can we just perhaps like this here? That it's perhaps a little bit difficult, and you can't just highlight points here, but that these are actually quite important points. And if you notice carefully, there's also something like a pole here, and that I like when all of these sort of like connect. See, this pole here goes to this here, there's like 3 points meeting here, and then it goes here, and then it sort of like connects. So I like some total when that happens. And then also here where I have tried to just sort of like build the clavicle, I like when I can sort of like see where that goes, and what 3D points ultimately create that. So we can do like this here, and technically go here, and that this will eventually be something like rather important shapes that help capture what the final character will look like. So I just wanted to like say that before I got started, and also something like placing these poles in the right place. And there's, for instance, too many polygons here, So I definitely want to like optimize that. We can just sort of like so whenever you like smooth and again, one stuff that's like annoying is like when you like when you smooth something where there's something missing, it tends to get rather bad. So you sort of like have to like be a bit careful depending on where you sort of like smooth stuff, especially here when there's like 4 squares. It sort of like smooths very somehow badly, but you can like smooth during some of like the more direct lines, for instance. But to somehow so now I'm just sort of like smoothing it down. And one of the things I like is that when I smooth something down, that it turns into like exactly the shape that I want and that I have like in mind for the character, and that the more I smooth, the more the points, and then I just add the volume back, the more it turns into something like exactly let's see what it is, as it were, that I want from the 3D in this case. And also notice that when I change the colors using these material and I add new colors here, it somehow I could say that it really helps me see where things are and place them even better. So that for instance here, I can see that I want this sort of like yellow zone to technically go something like almost all the way out here in this case. And so what I can see is that for this to work when I smooth it down, I have to add more points in the middle, and somehow this helps me optimize the topology somewhat specifically for what I'm like working on, so that I get the final result that I want. And let's see, probably here. So that's sort of like just sort of like a quick, you can say a quick video or something like about something like topology and so on, like as well, how to optimize the placement of the points in this sort of like on this 3D character as well. And that's sort of that. Let's see here. And I technically want it to be actually more towards the middle, but it doesn't really matter. And again, notice that when you smooth near a corner where there's like 3 squares but there's one missing, the 3D points gets placed really badly, and I should just basically add some more points here. But for now, this is to give like an idea just of like how I I use something like topology, and this just makes it a bit difficult for me to keep up with here, this sort of like point. And dark green here, and where was it? Blue, right? And here yellow, and was it red? And dark gray. And I actually think I want this dark gray to be just something like this, perhaps. Good enough. And we click here, and so I can like slowly whoops, here start something like placing these points. For instance, in this case, I know that I sort of want this point to be probably here, and I want this to go more out and somehow create this shape. And for that to happen, I need to perhaps remove some of the points here and sort of like place them elsewhere, and sort of like more effectively use the points and sort of like reduce the amount of points here and there to something like get this result. For instance, where I think that I want 2 of these lines to just go directly up here, and I want something like more of these 2 here to go in here, and how I connect all this stuff. So you can, for instance, do like this here and here. And what I want to say is that if you you know, paint these sort of like for instance here, then you can like much better see the shape, or like how things are connected, and where you want to place stuff, or you want to add stuff, or you want to remove stuff, or you have placed stuff wrong, and then you sort of like slowly start correcting things. And then when you do this, it starts finally to like making sense. Are all the points where they're supposed to be? Should you add more points or remove points, and where should you remove the points? And until you have something like fairly clean topology, that's actually rather difficult. But now I can, for instance, see that, let's just see, where I want more points and where I don't want more points and so on. And that's actually very useful for like optimizing, because I can see visually where are the points, where are the curves, and where do things add up. For instance, I can see here that there's a blue line that goes here, and now I can like visually better see the topology, and I can see that it's actually exactly what I want it to be for this character, and good enough. But there might be an issue where I want more lines to go down front here in the down here in the middle, or to place them out here, and I'm not really sure yet where I want the points to be placed, and where it is that things are specifically going wrong here. But it's sort of like a rather good result, and I'd say that what I have created here is somehow a 3D sculpture of the character, and in a sense you could say the Christmas personality and so on, and so on, the stories, and what's supposed to, where this sort of like character, what's going to happen to this character in the stories, perhaps like the sort of like the personality or somehow the character itself. And that's in a sense why I don't follow industry advice, because this isn't, they never do this in the industry. They'd make much more optimized stuff, and they'd care more about selling stuff and like just somehow, getting stuff done for the sake of it. And this isn't necessary, this amount of points, but somehow it's what somehow creates the final character. And I need to apply the mirror modifier just so I can start placing this as should. And there's going to be a dress over this. So even though this, I'm not interested in working the way that they do in the industry, but it's also because I typically work on passion projects, and things something like it makes much more sense that things are custom then, and that there's it's not that useful, at least for me as someone that works more on passion projects, to really follow mainstream stuff. That it's more about creating something like very, very unique, and perhaps like very, very important art, and that's somehow very custom for what I'm working on. And again, I can see here that this line here, I want it to go here, and to somehow start placing the points, and let's just add we add, and we call this it's just here we add another even more dot. Oh no, whoops. Yeah. We click here, and here, and we add a new. So and one last here, and here. So I can, in a sense, much better see the flow, and if the character is sort of like coming together as it should, and for instance, when I add this, suddenly I can like see this point technically needs to be just a little bit here. And without adding these colors, it's actually a bit confusing, like where are things actually supposed to be? When is the 3D done and all that stuff? And now that I have all these colors, it's somehow much easier to place the final topology as it should, and to sort of like get the specific result that I want for this sort of like more custom passion project. And we can like remove this. And for now, just so we can like start smoothing, it might be easier. I need to get the mirror modifier back, and now I just press L and X. Oh, whoops. Oh yeah, it also continues on the back. And you click here, XF and L, XF. Now I just have one side, and go in here, add the mirror modifier and clipping, so it's like sticks in the middle. And we can go here, and whoops, this doesn't connect, does it? Oh yeah, it does. And I just wanna what? There is something wrong here. There is something wrong here. and we just click here. There, I think that it somehow doubled some of the points, and that sometimes happens, and I think it's because I symmetrized something or something like that. So now, whoops, I click here, and then to go all the way here, select Control, click here, and it selects the entire edge. And I just want to go down here and here and here and here, and now we can like smooth some more here, and again. So to avoid this, I basically we can go here, Control again, 1, 2, 3. I just want to like connect all these last points here. And now I can sort of like smooth this entire area, because there isn't like a notch here where there's something missing, and now I can like more easily like smooth everything into place, and get the particular result that I want for this character, as it were. And over here, just to make it a bit easier, down here, colors are here, dark gray. So whoops. So I noticed that there's this triple point here, this pole here with like 3 lines going to 1 point, and I just sort of like want to try and like connect those like in a really nice way across sort of like most of the character at least. And I can sort of like start moving this in here now. Just let's move this, and so, and then and so we have like something like this, something like an ultra rack technically on a check, and it has to do with and here, and so this basically looks like, though the colors are a bit wrong, like what I wanted from the topology, and I think that I just sort of like because they're like a bit bunched together, because it's like there's gonna be something like of a bra keeping it like all together. So this is something like a way of building like the custom 3D character that I want, so that in a sense I can see the final character. And these boobs are too big right now, but I can easily scale them down. And this is the perfect, in a sense, topology for capturing both the personality and the shape of the character. And in the industry, they might more be focused on just capturing the shape and then optimizing, and then normal maps and textures, and not care. It's more about optimizing in the industry. But for me, for like these sort of like passion projects, I think it's more fun to try and also build or something like capture the personality of the character, even if it takes more points, and then sort of like work that way. And I find it more rewarding, and I can better see, oh yeah, this is sort of like the character that I'm trying to like put in, add to the video game. And you can see here that I have this sort of like reference. Let's see here. That I found this image, this AI fake image of Kristen Bell, and it's sort of like based on this to start with, and then it's supposed to turn into this rather, queen in like a Dark Souls video game with rather big boobs somehow. Because I thought that, if one could upgrade Kristen Bell to like the ultimate Kristen Bell, she's already rather awesome, this would be how, perhaps. So I just thought that, wow, if that was Kristen Bell, she just couldn't get better. She's a bit slender, I think, in the real actress. So she doesn't, this in a sense, doesn't have that much, boobs or cleavage, as it were. But it looked really, really nice. I'm sort of like, wow, like if somehow Pamela Anderson and Kristen Bell like got morphed into, got turned into like one actress, that'd be something else. So so that's sort of like the idea for the character, and somehow this shape here captures that, and sort of like and I can see that the shape here, I don't want this to curve that much, and I can also see that the points sort of like go down as it should, and if I have to, I can remove points and optimize some. For instance, perhaps I only want 4 lines here, and 3 lines here, and 3 lines here, and like try and like remove some of these loops or these sort of like contours later. But that's sort of like how I work, and I just sort of like, because I've begun a little bit on topology, and I sort of like wanted to explain that before moving on, and then that it's sort of like hopefully going to be a rather like important character in a rather cool video game. and I just sort of like so that's sort of like how I work, and I think it's like more rewarding, not just to create very optimized and sort of like a topology that captures the shape of the character, and then sort of like it's just ready to be thrown into a video game, but also something like the personality and somehow the muscle and the anatomy, and more simple like the actual shape and musculature of the final character, and for some reason I want that, but but in reality I shouldn't have like created all these poles. I should just sort of like straight down, straight across, and just sort of like the most optimized geometry. And for instance, I want to try and build these apps, but in the industry you just sort of like create flat planes here, and then you bake a normal map and you don't bother with that. And I don't want to work like they do. I do think it's very, very nice what they do, and you can learn a ton of important stuff from the industry, and they won't really teach you anything that's wrong, except they don't have the patent on the only way to work, and there's something like more in it for like money and just sort of like optimizing things, and perhaps something like ruthless monetization and something like that. And I don't care so much about that. And I feel that I don't really make good 3D unless I also capture the personality somehow of the character, and I can pretty much see the personality of the character when I'm like working on it, so that when I'm done, I have a feeling that it's not just 3D and really good topology, but the character is also like standing in front of me in like 3D, and I have captured some of the essence and perhaps culture and even something like wisdom and in like entire personality and history and background of the character in something like the final 3D product, you could say. It's not necessary, and I'm using too many points, but that's my goal, and why I don't want to work like they do in the industry, and I don't care that much about money or getting famous everywhere. And last, I think that somehow perhaps that television has gone in the wrong direction, and it's something like excessive and perhaps soulless, or despite it all, corporate television has gone wrong, and I don't want to get involved with that, and I want to work on different stuff and passion projects and things I really care about, and something like idealism and really, really, really great stories, instead of like just like raking in a ton of money, or sort of like the more corporate television. I'm not a fan of that, and for my own projects I don't want to work on things like that, and I don't want to be like that. I want to make something more personal, and where it's like something much more important, much more important, really, really good stories. And then last, I think that in a sense theater and the characters and some like really good drama is really, really good, and to somehow put that into video games. I also want both for the 3D to be rather good topology, but for the character to have been built, the personality, in a sense the final actress and the result should be there in the 3D. And that's sort of like why I work the way that I do, and that's all I go on. And thank you. Bye.